Hello and welcome to this lecture on Ansible inventory. Ansible can work with multiple systems in your infrastructure at the same time. In order to work with multiple servers, Ansible needs to establish connectivity to those servers. This is done using SSH for Linux and PowerShell remoting for Windows. That's what makes Ansible agentless. Agentless means that you don't need to install any additional software on the target machines to be able to work with Ansible. A simple SSH connectivity would suffice Ansible's needs. One of the major disadvantages of most other orchestration tools is that you are required to configure an agent on the target systems before you can invoke any kind of automation. Now, information about these target systems is stored in a file called as an inventory file. If you don't create a new inventory file, Ansible uses the default inventory file located at /etc/ansible/hosts. Let's take a look at a sample inventory file. The inventory file is in an INI-like format. It's simply a number of servers listed one after the other. You can also group different servers together by defining it like this. Enter the name of the group within a pair of square brackets and define the list of servers part of that group in the lines below. You can have multiple such groups defined in a single inventory file. This is so you can target a group of servers for any given Ansible playbook to configure all of them at once. Finally, you can also have a group of groups. In order to define a group of groups, follow the same pattern as group creation, except in this case you must add a colon followed by the keyword children to the parent group's name. In this case, I would like to create a group named all_servers that contains all servers in the groups mail, DB, and web. And so I define the group name all_servers within the square brackets followed by a colon and the keyword children. Let's take a deeper look into inventory files. For example, I have a list of servers named from 1 to 4. However, I would like to refer to these servers in Ansible using an alias, such as web server or database server. I could do this by adding an alias for each server at the beginning of the line and assigning the address of the server to Ansible host parameter. Ansible_host is an inventory parameter used to specify the FQDN or IP address of a server. There are other inventory parameters too. Some of the other key inventory parameters are Ansible connection, Ansible port, Ansible user, and Ansible SSH pass. Ansible connection is what defines how Ansible connects to the target server. As we discussed in the previous slide, is this a SSH connection to a Linux server or a WinRM connection to a Windows server? This is how we define if the target host we wish to connect to is a Linux or a Windows host. You could also set it to localhost to indicate that we would like to work with the local host and not connect to any remote hosts. If you don't have multiple servers to play around with, you could simply start with a local host in your inventory file. Ansible port defines which port to connect to. By default, it is set to port 22 for SSH, but if you need to change that for some reason, you can set it differently using the Ansible_port parameter. Ansible user defines the user used to make remote connections. If you need to change this, define it. If you need to change that, define it as shown here. Ansible_SSH_pass defines the SSH password for Linux. Note that storing passwords in plain text format may not be very ideal. Look up Ansible Vault to securely store your passwords in an encrypted format. Well, that's it for this lecture. go ahead to coding exercises and try to create some inventory files. We will stick to what we learned so far and create inventory files in its basic format. Thank you.